Okay, sorry, I'm gonna have to segment both these videos because I didn't have enough space to finish. So I'm gonna pick up the Hegelian dialectic is thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis. It's in physics and everything. It basically means positive and negative have to work out, something becomes stable. When you have a thunderstorm, the hot and the cold, they come together, the storm happens, energy is released, and then balance is achieved. Whenever in politics, Occupy Wall Street happened, that was on the left. Then what happened naturally was the Tea Party movement on the right. When Occupy Wall Street died out, what happened to the Tea Party? It died out. When one side falls over, is defeated, the other side loses its luster, its push, its impetus. The purpose, the reason for its existing ceases. Thus, the universe itself, you have this coldness and this hotness, where the suns give birth to the planets, and then there's this balance between matter and fire, and life exists in this Goldilocks zone. Now, what this is pertinent to is how the Jews had to wander in these foreign cultures where they were discriminated against, they were worshipers of another god, and so they stayed amongst themselves, mated with each other, sometimes their cousins and things like that. What this does is it causes, and other races did this too, but it causes, of course, talk about birth defects, things like that, but those mutations can be beneficial as well. So in this instance, some of them had the gene for this that the Ashkenaz have. Like when they took Einstein's brain, and then the parietal lobe, about the size of this part of your thumb, there was a part of the brain, I think it was like totally different or it was just bigger, and is responsible for spatial recognition and reasoning, and able to visualize things and so understand them better as a whole rather than memorizing details. And so whatever these genes that went on and passed, the ability to learn several languages, and then also their identity has been kept strong, even though they're a fossil, according to Arnold Toynbee. There were 26 civilizations, and theirs died out. But they have been resurrected. They took a language that was dead and not used anywhere except for inside the synagogue, and now you have millions of people who speak Hebrew today. So their identity has been kept strong all this time, and now, of course, they have the land in Israel again that belonged to them, for thousands of years. This war that is about to happen, and the wars that have already happened with Israel, is over land that is believed to be holy. I'm not religious. Israel, while I believe it's the Likud party that Benjamin Netanyahu belongs to, they're old conservatives. And conservatives, especially when it comes to religion, they find it okay to discriminate against other religions. Just like the Muslims believe there can be no other way to the afterlife except through their teachings in their Quran. If you look on my Facebook, Chiron Chimera, just like it's spelt here, you'll see an argument that I had with I call him a Muslim extremist or a radical just the other night, debating sort of philosophy. But there was no debating with him because he just would not understand or accept anything as different. Now, yes, conservatives are in power in Israel, and that is why there is a hard line against the Palestinians and the other nations. In history, as far as since Israel was founded, the United States has always backed it, and Europe has, because it was the British who established it. Was it the Rothschild who financed it, and everyone returned? We always tell Israel, whenever there's a situation over there with Saddam or anything that happened, there was with Egypt and Syria formed the United Arab. They merged into a country in response to Israel at one point. And we always tell Israel, let us handle it. Because when we go in and do something, there's really nothing anyone can do. But if Israel were to go to war, it'll unite the Shiites and Sunnis who are fighting right now. You have the Shiite crescent, Iran into Iraq, whose next president, prime minister, possibly will be this Iranian-backed hardliner. So we'll see that coming up soon. Is it destined to happen? Probably. And that land bridge, they already have it because the Shiites are in power in Iraq. We are cutting it off in East Syria. The deconfliction zone, the no-fly zone, the Deir ez-Zor region. It's the most oil-rich part of Syria. The Kurds are holding it for us, and we are there. I believe we have thousands of troops there. Turkey is invading from the north and even warned us. They said, they're going to push the Kurds out. Bashar al-Assad wants them out. That's where all the oil money is. But that is where we're drawing the line, because Syria is part of this crescent that stretches from Iran, Iraq, and then it goes to Lebanon. And what Israel does not want to happen, and what we will not let happen, is that land bridge to be completed. As things stand, as weapons come into Syria, they have to come by flight from Iran. And Israel bombs those flights that have certain vital technologies to anti-missile systems and things that would threaten their aircraft. As you saw, one of the Israeli aircraft was shot down recently, and in response, Israel's bombarded Syria's anti-aircraft missile defense system because Hezbollah of Lebanon is actually, we know that they're a terrorist organization. They have over 10,000 rockets now, more than they've ever had, and they're threatening to rain them down on Israel. The Golan Heights, I believe, up in North Israel, that was taken from Syria because Syria tried to attack Israel, and Israel won that battle, and they took that because it's a vantage. It's a high point, a strategic point, so that they can't go up there with tanks and other technology and just bombard Israel. So Israel took that high point as a strategic point, and they're going to hold that. But Hezbollah in Syria, Bashar al-Assad, they want that back. In fact, they just want Israel destroyed. Syria and Iran, after Israel just did all these bombings, have no taste, no appetite for a war right now. Bashar al-Assad knows he's already struggling. He can't even fight in his own country. We'll get right to that. Iran has no appetite because the people are revolting against the government over all the money that's being spent on the war, the proxy war in Syria. Syria is ground zero. Megiddo, Mount Megiddo, that's where we get the word Armageddon. That is there. And Napoleon had remarked when he saw it that it is the biggest battlefield in the world. He said you could fit the great armies of 3 of the biggest nations there, and they could all duke it out on this huge, flat, as far as the eye can see, plateau. That is where Megiddo is. A lot of wars have happened there before. And I've said this a lot. It's places have power. That's how you get hauntings. You have a place with a lot of history there, and then you go there after there's no one there, and you have doors slamming, you have sounds, you have disembodied voices. When there's a lot of activity in a place, especially with emotion or bloodshed, you end up with time doesn't really exist, and somehow that place, events in time ring like a bell, forward and backwards. That's where the art of understanding symbols and omens comes from. And Megiddo, just like over there in Belgium, Flanders, where so many great battles took place, like I think it's where the Civil War happened. You have these fields, and you have all these. It's just a place where you feel overcome by the power to have a war, like in Amityville. The murders happened, and then everyone who lived there after, the man in the house, would become sort of possessed by this entity and this desire to do harm. And so it's just the cycle. And all we do, we're like pawns. And when we go there, or when we're in these places, we can become overcome with the historical energies of the place, and they can affect our moods and emotions, and we won't be able to explain it. So I'm a believer that at Megiddo, that great battlefield, more wars will happen, just as they have repeatedly in the past. So Syria, you have the Russians providing the weapons. They are considered like the United States superpower, just like we provide the weapons to the SDF, or Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurds in the north. We weaponized them to help take out ISIS. And some say that we armed ISIS. I know Israel has some kind of deal with ISIS in the south of Syria, which is right on the Israeli border. It's ISIS-occupied territory, and they would be crazy not to have something to do with that because they've had peace on that border. You got the farmers and the tractors, they've never had a problem. So the Sunnis, who are against Assad, who is a Shiite, occupy by the border of Israel, and a sort of a symbiotic relationship going on right there. What could be the triggers or the flashpoints coming up? Well, for one, if Donald Trump was smart, he would not have given Israel the green light to do whatever the hell they want there. Because if Israel goes to war in Syria, not only are they going to be fighting Hezbollah, the Syrian conventional military, Iran, and who knows what Iraq's next government is, but their Shiite militias are helping Assad. They're going to be fighting a huge war. And the thing is, if Israel gets involved, the Palestinians, the bad elements within the Palestinian Liberation Organization and Hamas, they're going to be emboldened. They're going to be firing rockets on Israel. It's going to be a mess. I believe those missiles under the Iron Dome project that Israel had, 1,008 missiles were launched onto Israel from the Gaza Strip. Was that 2006 or 7 or 8? And Israel shot all but like 10 down because those 10 went into the desert. That's how precise the computer system is. And these are bottle rockets. These are homemade rockets that spend very little time in the air. And if you can respond to those and shoot those down, don't you think that is a joint project with the United States? I think we paid $350 million into it. Don't you think if we can hit missiles on that short notice that are that small, that mid-range ballistic missiles or intercontinental ballistic missiles cannot be shot down just as effectively, if not more, with all the warning time that you have when those missiles are launched? I truly believe that a nuclear missile cannot hit the United States. The only way they could do it is with a nuclear-armed submarine, like North Korea has 72 of them. A nuclear-armed submarine right off the coast could launch it with short notice that we may not be able to respond. That is the only way another country will be able to put a nuclear bomb on any American city. And it would be an effective way. That's why nuclear submarines are so valuable. Now, we will end up backing Israel, with Trump in power, of course, especially. But I worry about what the next president will do. Will they turn their back on Israel? Will they abandon them? Israel, and people could think, oh, to hell with them. But Israel has 200 nuclear weapons. They invented nuclear weapons, right? Splitting the atom. Wasn't it Einstein? A lot of the great physicists were Jews. So, of course, they're entitled to it. And who's going to stop them? They have 200 of them. That's enough to perhaps destroy the world when you count all the nuclear fallout and the things that come after that. And if they're backed in a corner, they're going to push that button. They will use it because they need to exist. Israel has a population of, I think, 13 million. Could be 10 million. 7 million are Jews. The other 7 million of Jews in the world exist abroad. United States, Chile, Peru. In fact, I was just reading about Peru. They have a Japanese guy who's the president, and he's a strong man trying to consolidate power, and I think the people are trying to revolt. And the guy that was before him, this is of Peru, was not Japanese, but he was Jewish. He had a Polish name. But the Jewish population outside of Israel is 7 million within it, and they are far outnumbered. All right. I want to know your thoughts on what you think. What do you think could cause this to become World War III? All right. Comment at the bottom. Bye-bye.